record and make this available as part of the consultation, so that people who weren't here tonight are still able to view later. Just in introducing ina mana, ina reo huri noa, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome for the kōrero tonight. We've got the Brains Trust here, so let's without further delay hand over to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. I'll just share my screen. And I'm gonna, hopefully this looks like something we're familiar with, just the front page. Yeah, cool. I'll get going. I have I just didn't want to water it down, and really just wanted to give a very clear snapshot of where we're going with land discharge progress. It was the option that was the when we did the multi-criteria analysis earlier, it was a heavily favoured option, etc. And it has been it's no secret, for 20 years this is what the community and tangata whenua have been looking for. So we were just I've got 3 quick slides and just plenty of time for questions afterwards. So I'm just going to go to the first one, and it's just a recapture of where we started in the top left corner yonks ago, and we had two land options that we put out there for investigation, and it was the first was the L1 was the existing treatment plus a tertiary membrane, and the consideration of public land discharge and an alternative discharge. The alternative is basically just to say a winter when there's water everywhere, it's that this is a problematic time. We wanted to give a realistic option. So that was our one. The second one was the greater challenge was using the existing treatment process without any upgrade, or just be the existing ponds and a private land discharge with storage, and that would have been the everyone's dream, a full land discharge. So that was a good starting point, and it was I've sort of put an area to talk about the controlling factors to that, and it was we've got the hydraulic load and the nutrient load. We're learning more that the hydraulic load, you can do high rate discharge with a good quality water, and it can meet the aspirations of tangata whenua, meeting roots and soils. It's the nutrient load which is a very critical limiting factor. You don't want to have the risk of overloading fields so that they are useful for 10 years of a 35-year consent. You have to do it in a manner that allows nutrients to not to be leached, put into the ground at the right rate, that they act as a resource, they promote plant growth and used by plants for their growth. And so when so taking this on board, there's different soils have different properties, and it was where we are now is any soil, any land is useful, and it was really just a case of to progress it. We need to really look hard at any options, and I've put there's 4 blobs there. One of them is quite new, but the 3 of them have been the 2 of them have been around for quite a while. And the first blob there is the Wainui Reserve Public, and it's it isn't the best soils. It's older soil in the hilly part, but there's sandy soils in the lower area which sort of lend to a higher rate discharge. Another blob I have there is the golf club, and I'm just really appreciative of even having the chance to discuss it with the project with the golf club. They come on very early and said, yeah, we want best for Raglan, and is there opportunity for the club to help, or where can we go from here? So that was really encouraging and great. The parcel A has sort of arrived a little bit later, once an area that's very important and sacred to Raglan was discounted as even really being used for the project. It was the airfield. But as part of that, with ELT discussions, there was an area of potentially really good younger soil, very deep and loamy. And it was, again, it was really appreciative to have the ability just to have an in good faith discussion with the hapa owners about the potential for future Raglan in terms of land discharge. And so that was good to start with it. But then with new eyes, we have got some new project engineers, the soil specialists, the specialists that have recently consented and are now commissioning the Tiano subsurface drip fields. With early reporting, there was it was really great to even to get involved to form a relationship with the big landholder and Mangatawhiri Road. In 2017, we did some initial studies there. 2017 was prior to Waikato 2070, and it did seem quite a ways out of town. Conveyance is always going to be a big cost consideration for this type of discharge. But as we can see there, when we've got the Waikato 2070 growth nodules, which will be embedded in the district plan soon, the town is really starting to grow out there, and in watch the space in 20, and very soon in the next 10 years, it'll be quite different and growing up towards it. So it was really worth having an additional look at it. And there has been a few little setbacks during COVID in terms of a lot of it was desktop analysis. We couldn't get our guys in, or we couldn't move around, but we were able to really digest that bit of land. It's hilly, but there is some very, very good younger soils on plateaus at the right slope. There's some areas with more slope where you could theoretically put a lower rate, a sort of a tree rather than grasses, like a eucalyptus grow really well in New Zealand, and you can coppice them. So I think I've covered this before. So you can have a renewable source. It just takes a third less water and nutrient than pasture. So I've just put a photo there that just sort of shows the desktop analysis, which I've been able to go out there with Landcare and talk furthermore with, and sort of get more understanding and talk with our soil physicists about the potential for this land. And landowner has been great for just in principle discussions, very helpful. So I'm very encouraged that there is a solution somewhere within this mix. It's just trying to find the areas that can cope with the nutrient load. So when thinking about those 4 sites, the next slide, I've just sort of really just tried to put a snapshot of where we are with each, so it's clear that things are progressing. For the Wainui Reserve, it was just planning on the GIS. It's been ground truth with walkovers, and there's an understanding of the soil physics by our experts. It was to a point where we're able to present the summaries to the reserve management team, which is a service delivery parks and reserves team. And it was just a request, some parts in New Zealand are able to use public land for co-use, but it's not a given at all. It's every site and every community is very different. So again, it was we're able to put that question to the reserves team. We've had some responses, and now it's in a very good space where it enables the executive management team to consider it further, ask questions, workshop, whatever we got to do to work through it as a technical team led by Keith and Carol in WDC. So I'm confident that that's going to get somewhere soon. We've put an indicative time, like if we're able to work through it in Q2, we might be able to have some decisions there. But it's, again, when I put key considerations, it really is a finely balanced thing to consider within a council. There's, from where we sit, where I sit, it's sort of like, oh, we just want some good news, but it's not that. It's never ever going to be that easy. It's older soils. It's not the best soils for subsurface surface drip, but there would be some advantages of it in the summertime. So you wouldn't ever discount it as a theoretical option. But so that's the project appeal. It's the conveyance. It's close. It's public land, which sort of always impacts on the budget you have, but has to be balanced against the critical responsibilities of council staff, and that's the well-being and responsibilities for communities. And they've got the reserve management Act to consider, and a lot of it is it's just tricky. So I'm sitting back and being and looking forward to just the workshopping things through to get to the right decision there. With the golf club, it was great with Charlie, Chris, and Howard, just to cruise over to have a look at the spot with our experts, land care, and really have a look at the lands. And it's with any golf club, it has to be worked and to get the right topography. When you look at the works that have happened and where it sits, it probably in terms of using it for a full subsurface drip irrigation site, it wouldn't be able to take the water that would be needed to make it a good public spend. So again, I've talked to Chris and haven't had a chance to talk to Charlie yet. I was just saying, can we please just put a pause on this in the first instance while we work through some greater suitable sites, in terms of the golf club coming on board early and just saying, yep, we get it. We're a big part of this community. We understand the needs of this community to show reuse and flagship sites that can do that. The golf club could be there. What I'm thinking in my mind's eye, there's other parts, particularly Pawanui, that have reuse options which don't include some surface strip. It'll be just a person, a group can have the facilities to put reuse water at their leisure, and not being a discharge solution. Again, with all the stars aligning or the moons aligning, it would be there'll be a pipe, a purple water pipe that will be down to Hutawai Road that could help service the golf club in the future for any irrigation needs. And that's something I'm just going to keep working with and showing examples of how it could be used in time. So again, that's on a pause at the moment. The technical team is really focusing on the other sites, particularly these bits of private land. With private land A, which is on Hutawai Road, again, it's a young, deep soil, and there's advantages of a more forgiving terrain there. And again, as I said, we really appreciate the ability to check in with the landowner to investigate. We've done the investigation to a point where we can start considering a business case to present, which is say, how could this work? And moving forward, it needs to be get property experts to really lead that, consider how it could work, and that's where we are at, considering valuation work that's needed. And whoops,
I didn't get that.
it's Siri. And whatever supplementary actions after that, we will just work through, however complex it is. The first point is just say, is there a win-win scenario here? So I'm confident that work's going to really progress in the new year. The last one, I have to move my thing. It's really just looking at the property that was, which has been known since 2017 and is being revisited. We've been able to do some desktop understanding of the soil physics. And we're going to be doing and we're doing work presently there to understand it better, including some drone work to understand the soggy parts. So the next critical step is for us to work through those studies, which we're doing. Again, the advantages are it's younger, deeper soil. It is in a gully landscape, so some parts aren't useful, but a lot of it is, again, and it's a longer distance. So you really got to think about the longer planning and how to make the conveyance workable. If it's say 4 kilometers out in time, it'll be closer because the communities are going to be growing up there. So hopefully that's just a snapshot to say that things are progressing, and just appreciate everyone's patience while we do this. The last slide are basically just revisiting the earlier shortlisted options and just thinking as this project has evolved, the option has almost evolved as well. It's sort of a hybrid option to meet the best practical option goal. It will still have to go through the multi-criterion analysis when there's some certainty around areas that can be secured for this project, looking at affordability, cultural and community acceptance, and the assessment of environmental effects. But I think that they really look favourable when we look at the pass, when I consider the passes that I've just presented. And again, in terms of what this hybrid looks like, the discharge, it could be a combined private or public land discharge and storage, with the potential for a full land discharge with the secured parcels. Again, it's just with our experts now, and just really breaking down the complexity and the mysteries of subsurface drip. There's some land, if it's the right land in younger soils, even in midwinter, once you get down through the first little bit, a couple of centimeters, it can be almost dry, and those are the sort of parts that you reserve for winter, and you balance it with the summer. You put it on the list, the ones that can't take it in the winter, and the more clayey soils. You consider the on-site storage, and you consider the weather bombs, and how you would always have a constant flow going there, but you have storage to take these big hits and soften the blow to the fields. So again, it's the potential for it, and that's light years ahead where we first started, where it seemed like it was quite an impossible feat to do it. The existing treatment process would be needed, but again, it would need a treatment. Again, it wasn't quite correct to say that a full discharge wouldn't need treatment. Subsurface drip lines, the worst thing you want is to have black slime coming out of it. It needs to be refined. Particulate needs to come out of it. There has to be chlorination, etc., to keep the lines free. So there will be some degree of treatment needed. And that's what we're working along in parallel as well, to get an understanding of upgrades that are needed to suit the future Raglan solution. So I had other slides, but I got rid of them because I just wanted a chance to have questions and for a chance for others to talk. Keith and Carol have been great support, and definitely anyone can answer queries. So over to you, Councillor.
Thank you. And I'm sure Richard is not damned with faint praise. He can also be of some amount of use if necessary. Well, so we've only got really a couple of others on the call here, but any question? Is it useful for Steve to leave the slides up or pull them down? Depends on the first question. Does anyone have a question or a comment?
How do I stop sharing? Is it on the 3 dots?
Yeah, should do. Actually, I can pull it down for you.
Yeah.
Start sharing options. I'll just go only host. There we go.
Yeah. Cool. I could start a quick query to Richard. Like we made some progress today with what we are thinking of next steps for these areas. Do you want to just cover the reasons, what we propose to do and the reasons?
Part of what we're looking at currently, we use a certain drone flyer which does sort of multispectral sort of drone flying to look for our water leak detection in our water pipes. So we're hoping, because it's good out here in Raglan, we've had probably 100 mils plus, I think, in the last few days. So the soils are all saturated. So we're in a mad rush currently to get some drone flights over our potential flights on Tuesday. I've just got to there's a few things me and Steve have to do to enable it, but that will enable us to look at when we've got these saturated big events of how the soil is saturated and where we've got our wet areas, and understand a little bit more. And that'll, when we finally get into the modelling, and that's the high level modelling, which we'll get it to in the end once we've done a bit more on soil investigation and understand the sort of permeability characteristics of the soil, this will all feed into the areas which we feel can take winter flows and summer flows, like Steve was referring to when he was talking. So we'll do a fly now, and then we'll hopefully come back in February when things dry out this way, and fly it again, and sort of understand more of the no-go zones for winter and the realistic areas, and how saturated the soils are. So pretty high tech, and it was a really interesting discussion for techno nerds this afternoon with the guys, because the professor we've got engaged with NextGen sort of knew from Waikato University days, all these guys, which are the young guys sort of coming up. There's a couple of generations after him. So no, that's sort of some of the things we're going to be doing in the next week or so, hopefully. And that'll all feed into us totally understanding with some surety that land base is really an option, because I mean it's a big investment. If we're going to apply for a consent, we have to have confidence with what we're applying for is realistic, because everybody's told us you can't do it out here, but the NextGen guys have really shown us that some of the assumptions in our previous around the soil characteristics out there and the variation in the soils, they're not all the same, and understanding it is really key to us along with the stream which Steve's going to pursue with securing land, and we're pretty confident on some of these lands that we do have good characteristics. So that's sort of where we're going with it. I know it takes time, and it's been a discovery thing. If me and Steve knew half of this when we started this project 2 years ago, we'd got there a lot quicker. So anything else you want me to talk about, Steve?
No, thanks. It's good work. A+.
But we'll hopefully the next meeting we will share the sort of results, and maybe one of the guys who's going to be working for the sub-consultant we've got getting on board lives in Raglan. He knows the area well, so that's a plus. So that he's very, very interested in the outcome. So there's a lot of passion within the consultants to see a good outcome here.
Right. Charlie, John, Hugh, any comments or questions at this point? Hugh.
In terms of utilising private land, I mean, that's going to have, I guess, additional challenges, isn't it, if you're dealing with a landowner?
Absolutely.
And having a partnership. I mean, to my knowledge, all the other sort of land treatment operations we have in our region, normally the land is actually owned by the council. So when you've got a private landowner, I guess you'll need to work quite closely with that landowner and ensure that partnership.
Yeah, and that's definitely the case, Hugh, with the further out land, how would work in with that owner. Hopefully the other one we can come to our first preference is obviously to own it. Yeah.
Charlie, John?
I don't really have any questions. I just think that some of those options that are showing up now is encouraging, because they weren't there, like you said, a year or two ago. So interested to hear how those negotiations get along, and hopefully that we can hear back from you guys in the next meeting. I don't know how long you guys foresee that taking, but that was my other question, is just, are we still feeling time constraints, or do we still feel that, we have another year, or what are you guys thinking on where it may end up?
I mean, what we're targeting for is middle of the year to try and get the consent application. No, Steve. I mean, Hugh and our Wellington, Waikato Regional Council have been incredibly patient and understanding. But I think part of it is that Hugh's attended to these meetings. He understands the sort of the journey we've had. Is it fair, Hugh?
Yes, I mean, these redesigns can't occur overnight, and there is an application for a replacement consent, I think, lodged last year. That's currently on hold to allow the district to explore further with the community land treatment options for Raglan, and we support that. But ultimately, we will have to, if things aren't lodged next year, then yeah, we'll have to apply pressure, because then both councils come under the gun for not progressing resource consent applications over.
It's a fair question though, isn't it, Charlie? Just it's taken us a long time to where we've gotten. But hey, if going slow means we've gotten this outcome, then actually we're much more aligned with where the community wanted to be, and actually it seemed an unlikely place to land. And I guess we still don't have the costings. Steve, I noticed there wasn't any dollars on your presentation, so that will be a factor at some point. What is the cost of doing this in private land rather than council land? It's a different calculation.
Yeah, I guess back of the envelope sort of calculations, you're really looking at the higher costs with the conveyance. The conveyance is always going to be a big chunk. The subsurface drip itself is a lot. It's $150,000 per hectare, I guess. And again, on the plus side of it is, if we can do this right, it's the treatment is lessened to what you would put into a freshwater body if it was a direct point source discharge. And you don't have, and again, that's just what we're discovering now is what is the best use of public spend. Just directly going to the traditional route may not be correct here. We have to really get our experts to look at it, and like going to the state-of-the-art treatment would you get the particulate down to like drinking water level, and you don't really need that if it's subsurface drip irrigation. And the cost just escalates like that when you do it.
Yeah.
Again, if everyone can see, if we just add our fingernails and we just can't ever find a solution, then I think there'd be more acceptance to go to that. I don't think we're just there yet. We just need the 6 months to really get to understand these bits of land that I feel that we have pretty much all we can do from the technical team. It's up to other groups now.
Because the land disposal part of it and the levels of nitrogen and phosphorus we have to get down to drive what we have to do at the plant. So understanding this part of it drives the upgrades, lets us understand what we need to do at the plant and like Steve sort of said, we don't need to get the nitrogen and phosphorus levels down to the same amount. We don't need to, the existing plant with some adaptation could be quite good. So a modification of that plant is far cheaper than building an MBR, for example, for no reason really. So once we've nailed this and done the modelling and understand the sort of levels of nutrients which will be acceptable onto the land, it will make us understand more what we have to do back at the plant.
And just a follow on from that is from a soil perspective, the soil is able to accommodate those nutrients and does the final polishing. So when you're looking at groundwater and the effects on groundwater, by the time it's been through the soil, filtration and the bugs and so on deal with the balance of the organics, it's well treated. In fact, it's probably the best form of treatment we can get.
I mean, another thing we have had looked at in the last month, because the regional council were getting, I mean, the ponds have the problem where we get these seasonal spikes and algal blooms, and so our suspended solids go through the roof. We'd been talking about a membrane. The price of that has over doubled in the last 12 months from our previous estimate. So it would take us, if we were going to go that. So we're looking at other ways of filtering too. So we've got that going on the side as well, rather than a full membrane. Do we really need to go to a full membrane? What sort of level? And we're looking at other locations and seeing with the different types of filtrations, what sort of suspended solids we get down and how much nutrient removal happens in the filtration, different types of filtration systems.
That's really useful. Thank you. John, you've shared a JPEG, which my computer is telling me not to download.
Yeah, this is a security risk, John. What are you doing to us?
It was just a photo of some cattle on the Wainui Reserve, because most of these areas you're looking at already have cattle on them, and they're probably producing an awful lot more in the way of pollutants than is going to come out of any sewage that council puts on. So I'm just wondering whether it's already close to overloading the local streams with what's there at the moment, and whether the additional water and nutrients will tip it over. I'm also wondering how easy it is to forecast what's going to happen over 30 years when you're only looking at maybe a few months of rainfall. And we have had quite a lot of rain in the last few weeks, well, last week anyway, but that's not typical necessarily for
the modelling we're going to do, John,
other years, or a predictor of what's going to happen. So I'm just wondering if there's some complex modelling that's going on somewhere that's trying to equate that to what maximum and minimum expectation might be, or quite how you're getting around that problem.
The modelling we're going to do, John, we've got 5 years of data at 5-minute time steps of rainfall for Raglan. Plus, we've got all the evapotranspiration, similar time steps. So yeah, we don't just look at a single event. We do look at and over that 5 years, we've had some wet years and some dry years out here, as you're probably aware. So the modelling does attempt to try and get a range of years of wetness. Yeah.
There's a couple of other points to that too, John. One is we always set aside a reserve area. So whilst we calculate water utilisation and what the land can hold, we actually take an additional portion of land and set aside for reserve for a couple of reasons. One is if we do get a failure of a particular sector, we've got additional land to be able to utilise before we remediate anything that has failed, and to allow for growth, or where soils are not accommodating the flow for whatever reason. In respect to the cattle, it's a good point. There's actually another piece of work there. So under California Standard 22A, we're not actually allowed to apply human wastewater to land with lactating cattle on it. And the reason for that is basically under Fonterra, and they think that there's still some chance of endocrine disruptor passing through the food chain to the cow and then into a food source being milk. So the way that we've planned to use the land, if we own the land or we've got an agreement with the farmer, is actual fact we're going to change the utilisation of the land slightly. So where Steve has pointed out that we've got some gullies on current arable land, that land may in fact be planted out with trees. So the trees are doing the evapotranspiration for us, but we haven't got the same cattle loading on that land. And if we have got animals on the land, they're not dairy. So the concentration of four-legged animals, as they currently are compared to perhaps dairy, is reduced. So we should see a reduction in the amount of effluent from animal applied to land. So in fact, improves the situation. And with forestry, then of course we've got some buffer between the animal and the valley and the water source.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really useful. Sorry, John, go ahead.
I was just saying thank you. So that was a useful explanation.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is actually for a very low attendance. It had some very big steps forward. Really positive. So maybe keeping. Oh, there we go. One more to admit. Therefore, keeping Aucklanders locked up might have had a bit of a silver lining after all. You guys got busy and made some progress, so that's good. And now we'll let you out so you can go fly a drone and do that next part of the work. So with that, anything in closing, Steve or Richard, Keith?
Yeah, the only I've just have I was going to say it earlier. There's the Freeman Cook and Peter Gehring, who have got engaged, have got a paper that I know that I want to give to John. It just sort of highlights what we're doing and it models the Te Anau experience. So John, I'll give you a ring tomorrow and send it through, and then I'll work with Carol about just giving it the opportunity for everyone to look at it if they want to in our document on our website.
Great. Okay, thank you, Keith. Any comments in closing?
No, I think we've been well covered today. It's been great.
Okay, well, with that, I guess we'll call it to a close. And Steve, when do we expect meet again? Just the next regular session, or I'm conscious of Christmas about to arrive?
I'll work with Carol. I think that I'm back on the 10th of January. I don't know, and so later in the later half of January, perhaps.
Yeah, either late January or early February.
I'm suggesting perhaps early February might be best, given that January is taken up until at least the 17th for a lot of people on leave. So
maybe we skip the January monthly and reconvene in February.
I'll do a video update, a 6-minute video update, just to cover January. Yep.
Okay, that's good compromise.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, I'll thank everybody for their attendance. Nice and early for my next meeting. Might have a cup of coffee before
Coffee.
in the Zoom cycle, in the white void that I find myself in. But yeah, have a good evening, everybody, and I probably won't see a good number of you pre-Christmas. So I hope, as do we all, I think that 2021 really is over. And we'll put some nails in the coffin of that particular annus horribilis to steal one of the Queen's lines, and look forward to a more positive year to come. Thanks very much, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
And stop recording.